Hello everyone. I am back once again, this time with a review on the Super 7 Godzilla from Godzilla Minus One. Now, you may be wondering, why is the camera like this? Well, because it's an iPad camera and I could move it back. And I would, but I already need to walk and everything like that. And also, this thing is so big that bless me, that it does not even, that if I just move it back so suddenly his tail would hit the box. So yeah, but before we move on to the figure, let's move on to this beautiful box. Unlike your average Super 7 Godzilla figure, which I'll put up on screen here, such as the Super 7 Godzilla vs. Destroyer, it is a kind of very small box. However, it is, of course, the main thing is just white and a little bit of blue. So you see here Godzilla Minus One. On the top, there is that slash mark, reminiscing of Monster Arts. On the back, nothing else. On the sides, nothing here. On the other side, some Japanese read-up. On, of course, the bottom, UPCs, everything like that. It is an adult collector's item, not a toy, although we're manhandling it like a toy. But don't do that at the same time. I'll go over why. And then we have just the logo of Godzilla Minus One with the G on there, because big G. So, yeah. All right, now overview on this guy. So, yeah, this figure was kind of in a long time coming. I think since, 2023, which I'll show up on screen here. The promo pics really were promising. I'll say that. They were so promising. And especially since Monster Arts or Bandai released theirs, and it was, I'll admit, kind of disappointing in some areas, while also really good in others. People were more or less agreeing that the Super 7 was a much more worthy release. So fast forward from December of 2023 to about September of 2023, when people started actually getting this guy. So yeah, people started getting this guy and everyone was so excited. Everyone was getting them in. And there were some things too. Also forgot to mention, there was a minus color version, and I'll show them on screen. And even more, and as of now, just recently, there is a new release from Super 7, that being an Atomic Blast variant that does not come with an Atomic Blast effect, which is weird. Super 7 about to pull a Bandai here. But yes, this figure was released around that time. It started shipping out. So the main question is, of course, is it better? Which a lot of people say it is. Now, when I saw the photo and the figures and everything, I was a little bit skeptical on the paint, as it actually looks, in my opinion, worse than even that of Monster Arts. Now, but yeah, otherwise, I still got it, and I got it around last October, and I was pretty freaking happy with it. But the overall question I think everyone is asking is this figure worth buying, especially since the Monster Arts is released, and of course, who knows, maybe Hayek will make one. Well, I'm going to ask those questions. Well, really not ask those questions, but start to answer those questions, starting off with the painting and the sculpting. All right, now, let's start off with the painting and the sculpting. I think the painting and the sculpting on this figure is, I'll admit, a tad bit of a mixed bag. Now, hear me out when I say this. I think sculpt-wise, it's much better than the Monster Arts. I'll show a picture of the head on screen. It's so much better. The Monster Arts has the back parts of his teeth make it look like he has wisdom teeth that need to be pulled out or something like that, while the rest is just fat globs. While here, we just zoom in, and I'm gonna have to move this setup here. Ooh. As you see, and because of how massive this figure is, The detail here is practically much better. Granted, it's still a little messy, but not as messy as, let's say, Destroy, I'll show on screen right here. And what mainly gets to me are those eyes. Granted, they're a little bit they're more yellow and orange rather than like normal white and like brownish. But honestly, I much rather prefer this than the sort of lack of eyes on the monster arts. But yeah, look at the detail on there. The sculpting as well is just so good. The design for the figure is really nicely well done. I really love what they did with this everything here. On the teeth paint, it's just so beautifully well done that I can't help but gush over it. The teeth paint is really well done, and even the eyes, although minor complaints, but I'll go over this. They'll soon turn a major complaint. We don't really see that much of this guy's scar. I mean, this is supposed to be a scar that he got from the movie. Spoilers, by the way. Please watch -1. If you remember, Godzilla like ate a bomb and then a water mine, and that blew up half of his, like a quarter of his face, and yet all of a sudden it just healed and then had a scar. So why does it look like with this figure there's barely a scar? But yeah, overall, I really love the sculpting on this thing, especially the head sculpt. Moving down, of course, to the neck. The neck is very nicely well sculpted. You can see the skin texture overall. It's a very nice figure to hold too. However, one major thing is the arms. Well, not really the arms. I really love the detail on the arms, like the bumps and everything like that, and the little elbow spikes. But mine actually has a QC issue. You'll see if you look on the side here, and I'm going to show you it more. There is actually a little bit of chipping. And this was just because of the articulation. And I don't know why exactly it was like that. And yeah, it kind of annoys me. Overall, but of course he has the black nails, the toenails, which look really nicely well done. Nicely shaded brown. Thighs nicely sculpted too. Giant thunder thighs indeed. Excuse me. But overall, the sculpt and detail on the rest of the body is very nicely well done. Cracks, crevices. And then, of course, moving on to the dorsal plates, it's very nicely well done. It has a nice texture to it, too. However, they are a little bit flimsy and a little bit rubbery here. And be warned, and I'll go over this more in articulation. But, yeah, these things are really cool, but also get in the way. Moving down to the tail, it's very nicely well done. Although, there's not a lot of paint on the back here, which is kind of disappointing. Alright, now let's start to move on to complaints about the paint. Now, granted, as I said before, the sculpting is really good. Dare I say, almost perfect. I mean, for comparison, here's the model. But at the same time, what annoys me about this figure is the painting. Besides the teeth and the eyes, and of course the mouth, once we get to that alternate head, everything on this figure is just two colors. The stock black plastic and brown. A dry brush of brown. A brown that barely looks like it was even utilized everywhere. As I said before, I mean, yeah, there's some bits and pieces on the tail, but there's not a lot. There's not a lot on the torso. And worst part for me is the fact that this figure's paint is just two colors makes it harder too. It makes it harder too, as I mentioned before. The scar is barely noticeable because it's all using the same paint. It's all the same two colors of black plastic and brown. Honestly, that's where I think, in my opinion, hot take, the Monster Arts actually does better. Because at least with that one, despite its dry brushing, at least they differentiated it with the gray and the bits and pieces of colors. Even though the head sculpt, in my opinion, was kind of horrible, at least it had, in my opinion, better paint. As it wasn't fully just brown and then with the black plastic. You know, everything here is just two colors and it kind of annoys me. It really does. And I hate to be that guy. It just does. You know, it's kind of a shame too, because the promo pics of this figure looked absolutely stunning. It looked like it was it looked like, you know, it was straight out of the movie. It looked much better. Yet this thing looks pretty bland. So yeah. Oh, other than that though, again, I think the main saving grace is the sculpting. The sculpting is very nicely well done. It's very nicely, you know, well sculpted. It looks very accurate to the movie. It's just a shame it just is coated in probably the worst paint you can pick of. And besides the teeth paint and the eyes and especially the alternate head, I just don't like the fact it's just two colors. That being, again, just black plastic and brown dry brushing. Would have benefited more if it was a little bit of gray. Anyways, now let's move on to the only accessory of this figure. And I mean the only accessory of this figure, because this figure only just comes with an alternate head, which looks very well done. I love the teeth paint with it. I love, again, the inner mouth and everything. I love the proportions of this thing way more than the Monster Arts. And, of course, the eyes. Although, he definitely looks a little bit derpy here. So, as you can see, he looks a little derpy. Now, as to change out the heads, and I forgot to mention, the tail is detached out of the box, so if you really want to put it on, you have to hair dry it and then put it in, or you could do the hot water method and then just put it in. Same thing goes for the head, which the head is a little bit difficult. I don't usually do this on camera, but to simply put, you simply grab the head and then you do a little bit of tugging, and then you do this. Hopefully it's showing on camera. You just simply plug it in. Now, let me just go off camera real quick. Yeah, it'll take a lot of work just to put that in. So I really recommend getting a hair dryer and then just straight up heating that boy up. But yeah, that looks really good. But I'm going to go over another complaint, and I'll go over this more in articulation. I really wish it could have just been a ball joint or a hinge joint. At least Monster Arts had that, even though it looked really ugly. This one, at least, I had to swap heads, and that's not really fun. But yeah, I mean, in terms of accessories, I mean, this is standard minus Goji, not like the Atomic Blast variant, so I don't know what else they could have brought. Maybe Shikishima's plain, but who knows. So yeah, I don't think accessories is that bad. It's fitting, it's fine for the character. I don't know what else you need to include. I don't think he needs any more, like, splayed out hands. I don't know. Now, start off with articulation. So, articulation for this guy is actually not that bad. It's definitely better than, in my opinion, a little bit more than NECA, but it still has some problems, I'd say. And I think this figure kind of shows it. Now, starting off, he has, as you saw, it was a dumbbell joint, so he can basically there's a ball joint essentially at the head. He can look down about this far. He can look up about this far. And it's really helped because of this neck joint that is also on a ball joint. He has a tilt and tilt, which is very nicely well done. There is an arm swivel. And again, as I mentioned in the painting section, there is an in and out joint. However, I think you have to be a little bit careful because it's been chipping. So yeah, it can go in, out this far, and can go in about that far. But again, it's chipping. It's starting to chip. He also has a bicep swivel and just a single jointed elbow with a swivel on there. And, of course, hinge-jointed wrists, which, honestly, I think every Godzilla figure should have. Ball joints are okay, but, honestly, hinge joints is much better. He actually has a no waist swivel, but has a actually really good diaphragm joint. But if you could hear that, that is the sound of these dorsal plates clashing with these ones over here, which is why I don't. Well, you can still rotate it, but honestly, okay, never mind. It wasn't that much of a risk. But yeah, as you saw, it can get in the way. But he can tilt this far and this far, tilt back, and of course swivel all the way around. He does have a lot of leg articulation from kicking up about this far and kicking back about this far, maybe even a full 360. Not really a lot, not a bad spread. No thigh swivel. There is a swivel at the knee, if you can see on camera. And of course, it is on a hinge joint. And of course, there is a ankle pivot articulation. Very nicely well done. And of course, he has maybe about, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 ball joints on this tail. Not really a lot. Like 7, never mind. Yes, you could see me counting it on camera. But yeah, it definitely falls apart, which is a bit of a shame. He has a ball joint here, ball joint, ball joint, ball joint, ball joint, ball joint. But it definitely untabs, which is a bit of a shame. But you can get some decent poses. And that's really all I can describe about the posability on this guy. It's decent. It's not bad, but it's definitely a little bit limiting. However, I do really like the diaphragm joint, and I do really like this sort of simple tail movement. But I really wish it was something in the lines of Destroya, which that thing is anything but a brick. That thing is a beautiful, beautiful figure. Dare I say could actually reach top 10. But top 10 figures of this year. But honestly, I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about this guy. In terms of articulation, it's pretty good. You can get some really standard poses, but with the lack of a hinge joint at the jaw, the QC paint on the shoulder, and the diaphragm kind of clashing in with the dorsal plates and the ball joint here not wanting to fully tab in or really anything, it kind of makes it a little bit hard to pose. Now, let's go over the size of the figure. This guy stands at almost 9 inches. He's roughly around 8.1, 8.2 inches. This guy is freaking huge, man. And as for comparison, here is the SUPER7 -1 compared to all of these guys. The NECA 2014, the SH Monsters 2019, and the Haya 2019. Yes, this guy is huge. He's a huge figure. He's so tall. So it really makes the scaling in the collection really, really awkward. Because everyone was like, I could mind this guy being bigger than the rest, but then him? Oh my lord, he's so big. And as for another comparison, here he is compared to the Mezco Kong of Skull Island Kong and the movie Monster Series -1. And yeah, this is the only -1 figure I own, and that was the only one I had at the time before I got this guy. And I will admit, I'm thinking on getting the bootleg Monster Arts, and until Haya, and of course, when Haya makes -1, that's, oh my lord, I might actually low-key quit Monster Arts. I've been saying that so many times in comments, but I mean, if they make a -1, I will cream. But yeah, otherwise, I'm really happy with this figure, and I love this. And I think, yeah, the Mezco Kong, this is the only, like, how do I say this? This is the only brand that this Kong could actually scale with in terms of Godzilla. Monster Arts, Kong looks too big. NECA, Kong's too big. But I feel like this one actually scales pretty okay with SUPER7. And I think same goes for the NECA Kong. I haven't done a comparison, but I will probably do a short about it. And as for one last comparison, and for your average 6-inch scale comparison, here he is compared to the Marvel Legends Zombie Captain America from Marvel's What If, with, of course, a custom paint job. So let's now move on to my final thoughts. So, is this figure overall worth buying, especially at full price? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll admit, it is really good, but, I mean, Super 7 costs a lot. This thing was like, what, 120 Canadian, which is absurd. This guy goes for about like 85. Links in the description if you want to buy it. Excuse me, but yeah, I think it's definitely so far the best -1 you can own for at least a somewhat affordable cost. And and if you wonder why I say I'm looking right now to my left and there is a bunch of statues, but I'll do a comparison with those in the short. But yes, it is a really good figure. I think the sculpting is really good. Despite some of the articulation's limitations, it's actually decently well articulated. And overall, it's a pretty nice, fun figure. But at the same time, the somewhat risky control with the dorsal plates, the chippings on the shoulder and on the right side of his shoulder. And for me, the fact that this figure is just 2 colors kind of makes it a bit disappointing. I really wish it was something like the Monster Arts, where as kind of disappointing as that figure was, at least they had the audacity to paint it just more than 1 color. Although I could be entirely wrong. I only seen that figure in blocks and I never even bought it because it was just too much money. But overall, I think, for the price, I don't think it's that bad. But I'd probably, if you have cards or some sort of discounts, definitely use them. If you can, definitely wait for a deal. Or even if you want to be if you're very, very patient, definitely go ahead and just wait until Haya makes one. I know they've been in talks to making one, but we'll see by then. So yeah, overall, I gotta give this guy roughly an 8. I know it sounds very negative, but honestly, I can't help but kind of enjoy this figure for what it is. And despite its flaws, it's definitely not a bad Godzilla figure, It's pretty fun, it's pretty entertaining, it's pretty posable for what it is, and if you can, definitely get it. But, of course, you have a lot more options. Hell, you could definitely buy the bootleg SH Monster Arts -1 and then just custom paint it, which is what I'm probably going to do. So, doesn't mean I'm going to get rid of this guy. I'm just going to probably put him on another shelf because he's just way too good. So anyways, yeah, that's the review. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you all on the next video, which will hopefully be some Transformers ones because it's also Transformers 40th anniversary. Till then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.